All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Holland. I am starting the optimization strategy presentation for Team 23 from IUPUI. We're going to present on the New Mexico State University District case. Our team is made of 6 major members who contribute to the project. We're all on the screen right now. We also had some support team members from other majors at the university and 2 faculty support from the ME department, Dr. Ali Rosbon and Dr. David Goodman, one of whom should be watching the presentation today. I'm going to pass it to Karina, who's going to talk about other collaborations we've had on the project.
Good afternoon. My name is Karina Gonzalez DeGraff. I'm going to talk about our club and the sponsors throughout. Tyler Welsh from RPG Energy and Ben Simon from Wilden Energy Group. We also like to do a special thanks to Thomas Schenk, a civil engineer from First Energy Group, and Bruce DeGraff, an electrical engineer. Originally, our club was started in 2000 to expose and educate the campus regarding the growth of the energy sector. The Energy Club actually was the catalyst in the creation of the energy engineering major for IUPUI, which is a majority of our majors within the group. It was within this major that we started to apply the Solar Cup competition as our senior capstone project as well. We applied skill sets from foundational classes, the tutorials provided by the competition, and utilizing the previous mentioned networking resources, we turned this competition as a real-world simulation. This was a multidisciplinary collaboration. We had guidance from electrical, civil, mechanical, and our energy engineer professors. And I'm going to pass this off to Catherine, who's going to get us started on the design.
So our design currently encompasses most of the NMSU campus, like all across the map, as well as the eastern desert lot that was also allowed for solar development. We're planning to install about 53,570 bifacial panels, and we're planning to produce about 19.8 megawatts of power with the design. Most of our energy generation is going to occur from like May to August, the sunniest months of the year, and most of the energy will be coming from that desert lot due to the high amount of solar concentration, as well as just the amount of panels that are going to be on it. There will, however, also be significant amounts coming from the building roof mounts, as well as the carports. All of this design was conducted in Aurora, the program provided by NREL. We focused on the buildings with the largest surface area on the roofs and the least amount of shading. We also oriented all of our parking lots to be parallel to the road that runs on the south side of the district. This is to have higher concentration of solar and more higher efficiency. We also approximated all of our solar art park panels in Aurora as well, using comparable panels from the database. I'm going to pass it on to Corey. He's going to be talking about our batteries.
This is Corey Miller here. So we settled on 12 battery installation sites, 11 of which are on the campus proper and 1 of which is on the desert lot. So these were sized by doing a building load analysis for each site through REOPT. Most of these sites are in the teens to mid-20s in terms of kilowatts, except for the desert lot, which is 150 kilowatts. So these were sized primarily for voltage and frequency regulation, with a small amount of peak shaving in some of the larger sites. We had originally wanted to include some potential for off-grid operation and some larger time of use shifting, but financially it's ended up not being a financially viable option in this case. Next slide, please. So the desert lot by far produces the most energy compared to any of these other sites. So that does impact the distribution system. So based on the increased load on these lines, we are recommending 2 additional transformers at the geothermal substation near desert lot. So these are both 2,500 kilowatt transformers. And then the lines leading from that site into the campus, as well as some of the lines on campus itself, will have to be upgraded. And then based on the OpenDSS model provided to us by the competition, we suspect the PAC building and the administration building aren't fed energy directly from the part of the grid owned by the campus, but are actually fed by the city's grid. We don't know that for sure, but that's our suspicion. We do believe that the city's grid doesn't want the PV from these buildings to be fed onto it at this point. So 2 additional transformers, also 2,500 kilowatts, are added near those buildings to allow the PV from those sites and their carports to be fed onto the campus part of the grid that's owned. And then in addition to all these, there's another smaller transformer added by the Corvette Center to help with the energy coming off the extra carports there. Most of the most of the sites without carports, the energy is consumed immediately by the buildings. So there's not much export in most of these sites other than the ones that have the ground mounted or carports. And then next is Kevin for OpenDSS discussion. Or Nick, I mean, sorry.
All right, hi, I'm Nick Aldrich, and I was placed in charge of our team's task of analyzing the proposed system and its impact on the existing distribution grid. Our team had provided a base case model in OpenDSS in which we implemented PV and storage systems previously sized and modeled with Aurora and Reopt. Modeling said PV systems using our chosen 370 watt panels and 50 kilowatt inverters, as well as accompanying controller for the system. After our PV systems had been modeled successfully, we compared the output summary with that of the base case, and there was no significant impact on the output of our system, but we slightly decreased the active power but increased system losses. Following assumptions made previously, we then modeled our storage systems sized with Reopt. Comparing the new results, we saw a significant increase in active power and a decrease in system losses. Our next step would be to optimize our model using storage controllers and upgrades to the system components, such as transformers and transmission lines, as discussed by Corey. We will now move to Karina for our financial analysis.
So for the financial analysis, we used the system advisory model known as SAM. It allowed us to compare initial values taken from the various design programs we've been using to make decisions on our project. One of the decisions that we discussed was the power purchase agreement. Two utility companies, we spoke to El Paso Electric and Xcel Energy. We noted that Xcel Energy's renewable energy and efficiency programs, you would be working with a third-party member or a liaison, which could be beneficial in part when starting off with such a large system. The second decision that we discussed was the sale leaseback initiative. We found that the numbers of panels that we recommended on the required PPA and the potential buyback went far beyond the financial constraints set by the competition requirements. So we had to shift our approach in order to produce a solar farm that at least generated cost savings to buy back the system in the end. The first option was our solar power purchase agreement, where in the contract agreement during the majority or the full lifetime period of the PV system locks the parties until the rights of ownerships of the system are available for transfer. Our current plan is 18.5 years, which is under the 20-year period competition. And Catherine will go into further on the 30-year lifespan. One of the benefits we saw in the system is the flat electricity rate structure. In some cases, you'll see an increase over the term agreement, but that's to be discussed. Advantages of the structure also is that the customer is paying for the PPA rates that are generated through solar power production. I'm going to pass this off to Kevin. He's going to give you a starter on the construction plan.
Hello, I'm Kevin Morrow. For our building and site plan, we originally planned to include panels on the roof of every available building. When we ran the financial analysis of that iteration of the design, we realized that due to shading and roof obstructions, some buildings' individual payback periods ran too long. Since this was dragging out the overall payback period, we refined the design to be more selective. For the desert lot, one of the challenges was how to physically secure the panels. Since the lot is composed of sandy soil, traditional ground mounts are not as financially advantageous. We researched multiple unconventional ground mounting systems and settled on using earth anchors. This is a technique that is traditionally used to secure things like power poles or radio towers, but is only recently being used for solar panels. Our design will also optimize the land use by equipping all of the panels in the lot with tracking. To make sure that our design was compliant with zoning, we studied the official zoning documents for the Las Cruces area and extracted the relevant requirements. Essentially, the zoning rules for roof-mounted solar panels can be boiled down to the requirements that the mounting system be visually subtle and reversible. Taking those requirements into account, we researched the various mounting technologies available. For the flat roofs, our design will use ballasted mounts, which are held in place by weight. A previous slide, please. On the sloped roofs, we will be using the solar pod crown, a relatively new technology that allows panels to drape across either side of a pitched roof. Neither of these mounting systems require any holes or permanent attachments to a roof, making them completely reversible and thus completely compliant with zoning. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our team thoroughly studied New Mexico State University's master plan document so that our design could be tailored to the university and its goals. A goal in the master plan is to enhance the appearance of the parking lots. Not only will our carports be a delightful shade of blue, but they will also have dark skies compliant night lights to illuminate the parking spaces. Other goals include becoming a 21st century university and placemaking, which is a design approach that focuses on creating uplifting public spaces. Both of these goals will be implemented in our design by our innovative solar art. Next slide, please. Some of our more innovative ideas were the use of aesthetic solar art placed at high-profile areas around campus. The greatest concentration of PV art is in the Solar Art Park. Solar panels placed atop a delightful wooden pergola provide shade over the walkway. At the same time, collapsible solar flowers serve both as placemaking decorations and generating electricity. In front of Hadley Hall, a pair of solar concentrators will stand on either side of the main entrance. These beautiful abstract PV sculptures will make a strong statement at the center of campus, showing NMSU's commitment to achieving a zero carbon footprint by 2050. By including bifacial panels across the entire design, we were able to optimize the solar farm. These panels are not especially common, and this project will be one of the first to employ bifacial panels on a large scale. I'm going to pass it off to Corey, who will talk about the summary of construction plan.
So even though in the contest guidelines, we were instructed not to worry so much about the structural integrity of rooftops of these buildings, in a real world scenario, you'd have to do a structural analysis to verify these designs are actually safe. Similarly, for the desert lot, our design intended to take into account like the possibility for erosion and other environmental degradation over time, but a drainage study would have to be performed to actually verify all that. So those studies are expected to take about a month, maybe a month and a half. And following that's a period for permitting and to actually order the parts. That's given about 2 months period. And following that is about 5 months for construction. The rooftop and ground mounted sections are staged to allow the specialists from the rooftop, as they perform the work over the summer, to shift over to the ground mount section at the desert lot as it gets closer to the beginning of the next semester. And following all that, the commissioning process at the end is expected to take about another month. And then next is Catherine. Well, back to Catherine again, yeah.
Hi. As with any large construction plan, you do have to consider any risks that may occur and how you're going to account for them. The risks we considered for this project is the late procurement of equipment. So if your equipment isn't delivered on time, how your schedule will be delayed and how that will affect costs. We also considered land that may need developed that wasn't previously considered in the site study. If you dig into the ground and you find that it's unsuitable for mounting, then you need to develop it, and that also adds costs, as well as any electrical grid upgrades that weren't apparent in the site study they need to upgrade. A lot of these risk premiums were considered in the financial analysis by making a very conservative estimate on what each dollar per watt is, and hopefully all of that accumulation of conservative and increased costs will account for any risk that might occur in the project. Any kind of catastrophic natural disaster-like situations weren't considered in this project due to the location of NMSU in Las Cruces, as in tornadoes, hurricanes didn't seem to be a very common occurrence, as well as earthquakes, so we didn't consider that in our risk analysis. As for feasibility, we're fairly confident that NMSU will like our design because of the aesthetic appeal of all the visual solar mounts, all the carports, all the solar art, and any of the rooftop mounts and desert mounts aren't exactly visible easily by the community as well as the decision makers. We also believe New Mexico to be excited about solar generation and on-site energy generation. Since a lot of their energy is currently imported, we are aware that by 2050, New Mexico as a state would like to become more renewable energy reliant and have less fossil fuels in their system. As for optimization, our first iteration of this design actually had a lifespan of 19.5 to 20 years. So we optimized that by reorienting some of the solar panels, removing panels that were unnecessary, and adding panels where we could really maximize their use. This not only lowered our payback to about 18.5 years, but actually increased the net present value of the entire array at the end of its 30-year lifespan. We're fairly confident this optimization worked very well for our project. I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and we're Team 23, live long and worm.